Don't touch her. The command cracked across the emergency room. Ryan Cooper stopped instantly. His grease-stained hands remained at his sides. I wasn't going to touch her. Then stepped back. Dr. Preston Hale barely looked at him. 3 physicians and 2 nurses surrounded the woman on the trauma bed, while monitors chirped beneath unforgiving fluorescent lights. Beyond the glass walls of Hawthorne Medical Center's private emergency wing, polished stone, brushed steel, and discreet artwork reflected the kind of hospital where executives and wealthy families expected the best medicine money could reach. Hale was one of its most respected senior physicians. Highly trained, highly paid, accustomed to being trusted. And after nearly 11 hours on duty with 2 critical cases arriving within minutes of each other, he was moving quickly enough that confidence and exhaustion had begun to look almost identical. Ryan stayed behind the yellow line. But he didn't leave. The woman's name, he had learned from a paramedic, was Victoria Bennett, 37, conscious when she arrived. No obvious traumatic injury severe enough to explain what was happening now. Pressure's dropping. Systolics 88. Recheck it. Still falling. Ryan watched Victoria's face. Pale skin. Shallow breathing. A faint movement toward the right side of her neck. Something was wrong. Not simply wrong. Familiar. Doctor. Hale ignored him. Doctor, look at her neck. This time Hale turned. His eyes moved over Ryan's faded mechanic's jacket, worn jeans, work boots, and the dark trace of grease beneath his fingernails. What? She was doing that before the crash. Hale's expression hardened. Sir, you're a mechanic. Let the doctors work. Ryan absorbed the words without flinching. I know what I am. Then wait outside. A nurse glanced toward Ryan. He could feel the room closing him out. The polished equipment. The white coats. The clipped medical language. Everything about the place said expertise belonged on their side of the line. Ryan took one step backward. Then Victoria's monitor changed. A sharper alarm cut through the room. Heart rate 140. Victoria? No response. MS. Bennett, can you hear me? Nothing. Hale leaned over her. Get the crash cart closer. Ryan's jaw tightened. He could still see the highway. Victoria's black SUV drifting toward the shoulder. Her hand rising toward her neck before the tires ever touched the barrier. The brake lights flashing too late. And after Ryan reached her, those frightened blue-gray eyes. That strained whisper. Something happened before I hit the barrier. Doctor. Hale spun around. I told you to step out. You're treating what happened after the crash. Security. A guard near the doorway straightened. Ryan didn't move toward Victoria. He didn't raise his voice. I'm not trying to treat her. Then stop interfering. I'm trying to tell you what happened before she crashed. The guard approached. Ryan stepped farther away willingly. No fight. No scene. Only urgency burning behind otherwise quiet eyes. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and second chances, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now back to Ryan. Victoria's monitor screamed again. Systolics 76. She's becoming unresponsive. Doctors closed around her. Ryan watched from the doorway. He wasn't a physician. He knew that. He would never pretend otherwise. But years ago, before the garage, before single fatherhood, before grief had reduced his world to one little girl and the promise to come home every night, Ryan had learned one lesson he had never forgotten. The order of events mattered. Pressure, timing, sequence. People often stared so hard at the disaster in front of them that they forgot to ask what happened immediately before it. Ryan looked at Victoria, then at Hale. The accident didn't do this. Hale froze for half a second. What did you say? Ryan's voice dropped. The accident didn't do this. Another alarm sounded. And this time, one doctor in the room stopped working long enough to look at the mechanic. For minutes before the crash, Ryan Cooper had noticed the black SUV because it was moving like something was wrong before anything looked wrong. He was driving west. On Hawthorne Road, one hand on the wheel of his aging Ford pickup, the other resting beside a paper bag containing 2 sandwiches and a chocolate milk. Emily's favorite. His 10-year-old daughter would be waiting at school. The SUV ahead drifted. Not sharply. Slowly. Its right tires touched the shoulder line. Come on, Ryan murmured. The vehicle corrected. For several seconds, everything seemed normal. Then Ryan saw the driver through the rear window. A woman. One hand on the steering wheel. The other rising toward her neck. The SUV slowed. Brake lights flashed, then disappeared. Ryan sat straighter. Something's wrong. The SUV drifted again. A horn sounded from an approaching sedan. The woman jerked the wheel. Too late. The SUV crossed the shoulder and struck the highway barrier with a violent metallic crunch. Ryan hit his brakes. Gravel snapped beneath his tires as he pulled over. He grabbed his phone and ran. 911. What's your emergency? Single vehicle collision on Hawthorne, westbound, near mile marker 14. Is anyone injured? Female driver. I'm checking now. Smoke curled lightly from beneath the SUV's damaged hood. Ryan approached carefully. The driver's side airbag had deployed. The woman was conscious. Barely. Ma'am. Her blue-gray eyes found him. Can you hear me? Yes. Don't move. She tried to reach for the door. Ryan stopped her with his voice, not his hands. Stay still. Help is coming. Her breathing sounded wrong. Too shallow. Too deliberate. Ryan crouched where she could see him. What's your name? Victoria. Okay, Victoria. Stay with me. She swallowed. Her fingers rose toward the right side of her neck. Ryan noticed. When did that start? She frowned. What? Your neck. Before or after the crash? Victoria closed her eyes. Before. Ryan's expression changed. Anything else? Pressure. Where? She touched high on her chest. The dispatcher spoke through Ryan's phone. Emergency services are 3 minutes away. Ryan kept his eyes on Victoria. You heard that? 3 minutes. She gave the faintest nod. Are you a doctor? No, ma'am. Her lips almost formed a smile. Then why do you sound like one? Ryan looked toward the approaching red lights. Because panic wastes time. Victoria's breathing tightened. Something happened. Ryan leaned closer to hear her without touching her. What happened? Before I hit the barrier. Those words stayed with him. Paramedics arrived moments later. Ryan stepped aside immediately. He answered every question. What he saw? When the SUV drifted. When Victoria touched her neck. What she said about pressure. They took his contact information and loaded Victoria into the ambulance. Ryan watched the doors close. He could have gone to the school. He almost did. Then he looked at the ambulance disappearing down Hawthorne Road. Something happened before I hit the barrier. He needed to make sure those words reached the emergency team exactly as she had said them. Ryan called Marcus Reed, his longtime friend at the garage. Marcus, I need a favor. What happened? Can you pick Emily up from school? A pause. You okay? I am. Someone else might not be. Go. I've got Emily. She can stay with us until you're done. Ryan exhaled. Thank you. He called the school next. Emily answered from the office. Daddy, I'm going to be late. Why? Someone got hurt. A pause. Are you helping? I'm trying. Then Marcus can get me. Ryan smiled despite himself. Yeah. Help her first. That was his daughter. 10 years old, and already understanding the rule he had tried to teach her without saying it directly. When somebody needed help, inconvenience was not an excuse to disappear. Ryan climbed into his Ford and drove toward Hawthorne Medical Center. He still didn't know Victoria's last name. He didn't know she was one of the wealthiest women in America. He knew only one thing. The crash was what everyone could see. But Ryan had seen the 4 minutes before it. And somewhere inside those 4 minutes was the truth. He fixes engines. We fix people. Dr. Preston Hale said it without looking at Ryan. The sentence was quiet. That somehow made it worse. Ryan stood near the trauma bay entrance, his jacket still carrying dust from the highway. I understand that. Good. I still need to tell you what I saw. Hale pulled on gloves. You already spoke to the paramedics. They didn't see the 4 minutes before the crash. We have their report. You have the crash. Ryan paused. I saw what happened before it. Hale finally looked at him. Not at Ryan's eyes. At his clothes. His hands. The grease beneath his fingernails. Then Hale turned away. Leave it with the nurse. The curtain slid closed. Ryan remained where he was. Beyond it came clipped voices. Pressure. Still soft. Any obvious internal bleeding? Nothing significant yet. Ryan stared at the narrow gap between the curtains. One hand gripping the wheel. The other touching her neck. Brake lights. A correction. Then the barrier. Sir. Ryan turned. A woman in navy scrubs stood beside him. Her badge read, Dr. Rachel Monroe, Emergency Medicine. You were the witness? Yes. I'm Rachel Monroe. Tell me exactly what happened. Ryan nodded toward the trauma bay. Shouldn't you be in there? I will be. She lifted a pen. But first I'm listening. That word mattered. Ryan took a breath. She drifted right once. Corrected. About 20 seconds later, she touched the right side of her neck. Rachel wrote it down. Then, brake lights. She slowed. Her hand moved from her neck toward her upper chest. Was she conscious after impact? Yes. Confused. A little. She knew her name. What did she say? Ryan reconstructed it carefully. She said something happened before she hit the barrier. Rachel stopped writing. Those exact words. Yes. A monitor alarm sounded behind the curtain. Rachel glanced toward it. Anything else? Her breathing sounded wrong before the paramedics moved her. Rachel studied him now. Not his jacket. Him. You have medical training? Some emergency response training. Years ago. What kind? Before Ryan could answer, Hale called her. Monroe. Rachel started away. Doctor. She turned. The order matters. Her brow furrowed. She didn't hit the barrier and then start feeling bad. Ryan's voice lowered. She started feeling bad, then hit the barrier. Rachel held his gaze, then disappeared behind the curtain. Inside, she handed Hale the notes. He says symptoms started before impact. Hale barely glanced at them. He's a mechanic. He's also the only person who saw the pre-crash sequence. We have a trauma patient deteriorating. Rachel looked at the notes. Neck, chest pressure, loss of control, crash. Something about that order bothered her. But the room was moving quickly. Orders, numbers, alarms. Everyone was looking at what the collision had done to Victoria Bennett. No one had yet stopped long enough to ask what Victoria Bennett's body had been doing before the collision ever happened. You're looking at the wreck. Rachel stopped halfway through the trauma bay. Ryan stood beyond the glass doors. Look at the 4 minutes before it. Another alarm sounded. Systolics 82. Heart rate climbing. Recheck the abdomen. Hale moved between monitors with practiced authority. Victoria lay beneath a white sheet. Her SUV had struck a highway barrier. That fact dominated everything. Trauma, impact, possible internal injury. But Rachel looked down at Ryan's notes. Neck discomfort, upper chest pressure, loss of control, then crash. She stepped toward Hale. Preston. What? The witness says her symptoms started before impact. We know. No. We know he said it. Hale glanced toward Ryan through the glass. And the sequence doesn't fit as neatly as we're treating it. Hale exhaled. Rachel, she was in a motor vehicle collision. I can see that. Then stay focused. Rachel's eyes moved back to Victoria. No obvious traumatic finding they had identified fully explained her deterioration. That bothered her. Not because Ryan had diagnosed anything. He hadn't. He had done something simpler. He had remembered. Outside, Ryan watched Victoria's hand. Her fingers made a faint movement toward the same side of her neck. His expression changed. Dr. Monroe. Rachel turned. She's doing it again. What? Ryan touched the right side of his own neck. The same place. Rachel looked back at Victoria. Hale noticed. Could be pain from the restraint. Could be, Rachel said. Ryan shook his head. She did it before the seat belt locked. Hale's patience tightened. You cannot know what that movement means. Ryan met his eyes. I don't. That answer stopped him. I'm not telling you what it means. A beat. I'm telling you when it happened. The room quieted for half a breath. Rachel looked at the timeline again. That distinction mattered. Ryan wasn't pretending to be a physician. He wasn't prescribing. He wasn't diagnosing. He was giving them a sequence. And sequence could change the questions. Let's reassess from the beginning, Rachel said. Hale frowned. We already. Not from the crash. She looked at him. From before the crash. A nurse adjusted Victoria's monitor. Systolics 78. Hale's face hardened. We don't have time to chase theories. Then don't chase one. Rachel handed him the notes. Rule out what doesn't fit. Hale looked at the page. For the first time, he actually read it. Ryan remained behind the line. His phone vibrated. Emily. He typed, still at hospital. Marcus has you. I love you. Her reply came seconds later. Help her first. Ryan swallowed. Inside, Rachel asked the team to broaden the reassessment while continuing to stabilize Victoria. No miracle. No sudden revelation. Just professionals beginning to question an assumption. Hale looked through the glass. What exactly did she say? Ryan answered immediately. Something happened before I hit the barrier. Anything else? Pressure here. Ryan touched his upper chest. Then her neck. Rachel exchanged a look with Hale. This time, he didn't dismiss it. Ryan had spent most of his adult life listening to machines. A rattle before an engine failed. A vibration before a bearing gave out. A change in rhythm before something broke. But people were not engines. He knew that better than anyone. Still, one lesson belonged to both worlds. Failure rarely began at the moment everyone finally noticed it. The crash had been the loudest event. That didn't mean it had been the first. You've done this before. Rachel stood outside the trauma bay, studying Ryan differently now. A long time ago. What kind of emergency response training? Ryan hesitated. Air Force. You were a medic? No, pararescue. No, Ryan looked at her. I served in an Air Force rescue unit. I wasn't a medic, but I was trained in emergency response, extraction support, and scene assessment. How long? 8 years. Rachel glanced through the glass. And you never thought that was worth mentioning? You asked what I saw. Ryan rubbed his thumb against the grease near his fingernail. What I used to wear shouldn't make what I saw more true. That answer stayed with her. Why'd you leave? Ryan's expression changed. My wife died. Rachel lowered her voice. I'm sorry. So was I. A pause. My daughter was 5. Ryan looked at Emily's message. She needed a father who came home every night. So I came home and became a mechanic. My dad had a garage. I knew engines. Rachel studied him. Training doesn't disappear because the uniform does. Neither does responsibility. A sharp alarm erupted. Rachel turned. Systolics, 74. Victoria? No response. Rachel rushed inside. Hale moved to the bedside. Recheck the trauma studies. Review everything. Rachel looked at Victoria, then at Ryan's timeline. Neck discomfort. Chest pressure. Loss of control. Impact. Preston. Not now. We need to widen this. We are stabilizing a trauma patient. What if the trauma isn't the primary event? Hale looked at her. Rachel pointed toward the notes. She was symptomatic before impact. We don't know what those symptoms mean. No, Rachel's voice remained controlled. But we know when they started. Another alarm. Ryan saw Victoria's fingers move toward her neck again. Rachel. She looked through the glass. Ryan touched his own neck. Same place. Rachel turned back. We need to consider a cardiac or vascular cause. Hale stared at her. Based on a mechanic's observation? Based on a witness timeline we should have taken seriously. Silence. Then Hale nodded. Do it. The room moved. New orders. New questions. A different direction. Ryan remained outside. He didn't smile. He didn't step forward. He didn't suddenly become something he wasn't. He was still a mechanic. Still a single father. Still a man with grease beneath his nails. But years earlier, Ryan had learned that rescue wasn't always about being the person with the answer. Sometimes it meant noticing the detail everyone else had stepped over. Sometimes it meant speaking when people wanted you. Silent. And sometimes it meant knowing when to get out of the way once the right people finally listened. One physician studying the reassessment suddenly went still. Dr. Hale. Hale turned. What? You need to see this. Hale stepped closer. The physician pointed to the new findings. Rachel's eyes narrowed. The team had found evidence of a serious cardiovascular emergency that had begun before the collision. A problem severe enough to explain Victoria's chest and neck symptoms, her loss of control, and her rapid deterioration afterward. The crash had complicated the picture. It had not started it. Hill's expression changed. Activate the appropriate specialty team. Now. Another alarm cut through the room. Systolics, 72. Victoria? No response. Move. The trauma bay erupted into controlled motion. A nurse adjusted equipment. Another physician called the specialty team. Rachel remained near Victoria while Hale abandoned the assumption that had guided them from the beginning. Outside the glass, Ryan watched. He couldn't hear every word. He didn't need to. He recognized the change. Not the diagnosis. The direction. They were no longer asking only what the collision had done to Victoria. They were asking what had happened to Victoria before she struck the barrier. Ryan exhaled. Then Hale looked through the glass. Their eyes met. No smirk this time. No dismissal. Just recognition. Ryan pointed once toward Victoria's neck. Hale nodded. That was enough. The doors closed. Ryan stepped backward. He had reached the edge of what he could give them. Now the doctors had to do what only doctors could do. Minutes stretched. The fluorescent lights hummed. Ryan sat beneath a clock that seemed determined to move slower than time itself. His phone vibrated. Emily. Hey. Is she okay? They're working on her. Did they listen to you? Ryan looked toward the closed doors. Eventually. Were you right? Ryan leaned back. That's not the important part. What is? that they're helping her. Inside, the medical team treated the newly identified cardiovascular emergency. No miracle hands. No impossible procedure from a mechanic. Just trained physicians finally. Working with the missing part of the story. Rachel watched the monitor. Pressures coming up. Hale remained focused. Again. A moment passed. Then another. Systolics, 78. Rachel waited. 84. The rhythm steadied. Not normal. Not safe yet. But better. Hale slowly released a breath. We have her. Nobody celebrated. Professionals rarely did when danger had only begun to retreat. But the room changed. The panic softened. Voices lowered. Hands became less frantic. And through the glass stood the man they had nearly removed from the hospital. Faded jacket. Worn boots. Grease on his sleeve. Hands resting quietly at his sides. Rachel stepped into the hallway several minutes later. Ryan stood. Well, she's stable enough for the next stage of treatment. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. Good. Rachel studied him. That's all. What else should there be? You changed the direction of the assessment. Ryan shook his head. I gave you a timeline. You gave us the timeline we were ignoring. Behind her, Hale appeared. For several seconds, he looked at Ryan. Neither man spoke. Then Hale said quietly, Mr. Cooper. Ryan waited. We would have kept looking at the crash. Ryan's expression remained calm. But you didn't. Hale lowered his eyes. No, Ryan could have used the moment. He could have reminded Hale of every dismissive word. Instead, he asked one question. Is she going to live? Hale looked at him again. If she keeps responding, she has a real chance. Ryan nodded. That's enough. And he walked toward the waiting area to call his daughter. Behind him, an emergency room full of highly trained people had gone quiet. Not because a mechanic had become a doctor, but because the man they thought had nothing to teach them had noticed the one thing expertise had almost overlooked. Where's the mechanic? Victoria Bennett's voice was barely stronger than a whisper. Rachel looked up from the chart. You remember him? Victoria lay beneath a pale hospital blanket, morning sunlight filtering through half-closed blinds. The machines beside her no longer screamed. They hummed. I remember the highway. Her eyes moved toward the window. And a man, telling me to stay awake. Ryan Cooper. Victoria repeated the name. Ryan. You were lucky he stopped. I thought he was a paramedic. He's a mechanic. Victoria looked back. A mechanic? Rachel nodded. He saw your SUV drifting before the collision. He noticed what you were doing with your neck and chest. Most importantly, he remembered your symptoms started before impact. So he told you. He tried. Victoria studied her. What does that mean? Rachel didn't soften it. It means we didn't listen quickly enough. Why? Because he arrived wearing grease-stained clothes instead of a white coat. Silence. Victoria looked toward the doorway. Where is he? He left. When? Hours ago. He didn't wait? He had a daughter waiting for him. Victoria frowned. Did he know who I was? I don't think so. Before Rachel could continue, the television changed to a business news segment. Victoria's own face appeared. Bennett Aeronautics founder recovering after highway emergency. Corporate headquarters. Aircraft. Financial graphics. A fortune large enough to make most people stop listening after the word billion. Victoria stared, then laughed once. It hurt. He really didn't know? No, and he left. Yes. No message. No request. None. Victoria turned toward the window. For most of her adult life, people had known her name before they knew her. Investors knew it. Reporters knew it. Politicians knew it. People who wanted jobs, contracts, introductions, donations. Ryan Cooper had known none of it. On the highway, she had been only a frightened woman who couldn't breathe. And somehow, that had been enough. What exactly did he do? Rachel considered her answer. He didn't diagnose you. Victoria listened. He didn't treat you. Rachel paused. He gave us the part of the story we were missing, and he kept speaking after we made it clear we didn't think he belonged in the conversation. And that saved me. The medical team saved your life. Rachel looked directly at her. But Ryan changed where we looked when time mattered. Victoria's eyes grew damp. Not dramatic tears. Just recognition of how narrow the distance had been between being alive and becoming a headline written in the past tense. Why would he stay? Rachel smiled faintly. He said responsibility doesn't disappear when the uniform does. Uniform. Ryan served in an Air Force rescue unit years ago. Victoria stared at her. The mechanic. The mechanic. A long silence followed. Then Victoria looked back at the television. The man who had helped save one of the wealthiest women in America had left before learning she was wealthy. Can you get me his number? Rachel raised an eyebrow. Victoria reconsidered. No, what are you going to do? For the first time since waking, Victoria smiled like herself. I think when someone helps save your life without asking who you are. She looked toward the morning light. You should have the dignity to thank him without asking him to come to you. 3 weeks later, Ryan stood beneath the open garage door staring at a midnight blue sedan. You brought me a broken car? Victoria stepped from the driver's seat. I was told you're a mechanic. I am. Then this seemed more appropriate than flowers. Ryan almost smiled. Victoria looked different without monitors and white sheets. Dark jeans, cream blouse, simple shoes, no entourage. Ryan wiped his hands on a shop rag. Hospital. Victoria smiled. Highway. That broke the tension. Barely. Ryan walked around the sedan. What's wrong with it? Rattling under acceleration. How long? 2 weeks. And you kept driving it? I build airplanes. Apparently that confidence doesn't transfer to cars. Ryan opened the hood. Smart woman. From the office window, Emily looked up from her homework. Daddy. Yeah. Is that the lady? Ryan froze. Victoria raised an eyebrow. The lady? Emily appeared. The one from the crash. Ryan sighed. Emily Cooper. This is Victoria Bennett. Emily studied her. You look better. I feel better. My dad said the doctors saved you. Victoria looked at Ryan. Your father has been very determined about that. Because they did. 20 minutes later, Ryan straightened. Loose heat shield. Nothing dramatic. How much? 45. Victoria blinked. That's all. That's what it costs. She handed him her card. Ryan glanced at the name. Bennett Aeronautics. Now he understood. You own Bennett Aeronautics? Victoria nodded. Ryan handed the card back. Huh. She waited. Huh. What do you want me to say? Most people say more than huh. Most people probably aren't charging you $45. A smile reached her eyes. Then Victoria became serious. I came for another reason. I figured. You helped save my life. I helped give the doctors information. You stayed when people dismissed you. So I want to repay you. Ryan's expression changed. No, you haven't heard the offer. I heard repay. Victoria paused. I could invest in this garage. New lifts. New equipment. Expansion. No, Ryan, I'm glad you're alive. But you don't owe me your money. Then what do I owe you? Nothing. The garage filled with the rhythmic clicking of a cooling engine. Victoria looked around. Old tools. Faded paint. Emily doing homework. What if it isn't charity? Ryan studied her. Victoria opened a folder. Bennett Aeronautics maintains a regional fleet. Service vans, executive vehicles, ground support trucks. We're reviewing local maintenance contractors. You're offering me the contract? No, that caught him. I'm offering you the chance to bid. Victoria placed the folder on the workbench. Same requirements. Same pricing review. Same standards as everyone else. And if my bid isn't good enough? You lose. A slow smile appeared. That I can work with. Victoria smiled back. That's what I thought. For the first time, the billionaire hadn't offered him rescue. She had offered opportunity. And the mechanic hadn't asked to be carried through the door. Only allowed to compete for the right to walk through it himself. From the office, Emily watched them. Then she whispered with a grin. Dad likes the hospital lady. Ryan looked up. I heard that. Victoria laughed. And for the first time since the highway, what passed between them wasn't fear, debt, or gratitude. It was something quieter. Respect. Perhaps even the beginning of a second chance. I saw a mechanic. 6 months later, Dr. Preston Hale stood beneath the open garage door, hands tucked into the pockets of a plain navy jacket. Ryan looked up from the engine in front of him. That's what I am. Hale nodded. I know. Cooper Auto Repair looked almost the same. Same faded sign. Same oil-stained floor. Same old radio. But 2 new service bays were occupied by Bennett Aeronautics vehicles, and 3 additional mechanics now worked alongside Ryan's original crew. Ryan had won the fleet contract. Not because Victoria had given it to him. His bid had survived the same pricing review, inspection, and performance standards as every competitor. He had earned it. Hale glanced toward a Bennett service van. I heard business is good. We stay busy. Another silence. Then Hale looked directly at Ryan. I should have listened to you. Ryan set down his wrench. I saw grease. Work boots. A mechanic standing outside my trauma bay. Hale's jaw tightened. I saw what you were before I heard what you were saying. Ryan wiped his hands on a rag. I was still a mechanic. That wasn't the mistake. Hale swallowed. The mistake was thinking that meant you had nothing worth hearing. There was no audience. No administrators. No billionaire demanding an apology. Just two men in a working garage. Ryan extended his hand. Hale looked at it before taking it. Next time, Ryan said, listen first. I will. That was enough. Not every wrong required humiliation in return. Sometimes redemption began when pride finally became quiet enough to learn. Later that evening, golden light poured through the garage doors. Emily sat inside the office doing homework while Victoria leaned against Ryan's workbench holding 2 coffees. You know, she said, you could occasionally buy these. Ryan accepted one. You're the billionaire. So now my money matters? For coffee? Absolutely. Victoria laughed. The sound had become familiar there. So had she. Emily called her Victoria. The mechanics teased Ryan whenever her car appeared. And somewhere between fleet meetings, homework nights, and coffee beside unfinished engines, gratitude had quietly become friendship. Friendship had become trust. Neither rushed to name what came after. Victoria looked toward Emily. She seems happy. She is. And you? Ryan considered the question. I'm getting there. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Victoria asked, do you know everyone still says you saved my life? Ryan shook his head. I noticed something. You noticed what trained people missed. And trained people saved you. Victoria studied him. You really won't take the credit. I'll take my part. He looked toward her. Just not theirs. The garage settled into evening silence. Metal cooled with faint ticking sounds. Traffic whispered beyond the open doors. Victoria turned the coffee cup between her hands. Then let me ask you something. Ryan waited. If you helped save me, her voice softened. Who saved you? Ryan's eyes moved toward the office. Emily was bent over her homework, blonde hair falling across her face. For an instant, Ryan saw a 5-year-old girl standing at a funeral, holding his hand with both of hers. He remembered coming home to a house that no longer sounded like home. He remembered grief making every morning feel heavier than the last. Then he remembered a little voice calling, Daddy. Ryan smiled. She did. Victoria followed his gaze. No explanation was necessary. The billionaire stood beside a mechanic with grease beneath his fingernails, and neither said anything for a while. Because some truths became smaller when explained. Ryan had helped keep Victoria alive on the worst day of her life. Emily had done the same for him years earlier. Outside, sunset turned the garage windows gold. No applause came. No cameras. No impossible miracle. Just work. Family. Grace. And 2 people discovering that second chances rarely arrive looking like second chances. Sometimes they arrive on a highway. Sometimes in a hospital where someone finally decides to listen. Sometimes in an old garage with coffee cooling beside a toolbox. And sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one who notices what matters most. Ryan picked up his wrench. Victoria remained beside him. Emily laughed from the office. The garage lights came on against the falling dark. And the man who had once been told that mechanics fixed engines while doctors fixed people understood something quieter now. Titles mattered. Training mattered. Expertise mattered. But so did listening. So did respect. So did the courage to speak when something didn't fit. Ryan Cooper had never needed to become a doctor to help save Victoria Bennett. He only needed to notice, to remember, to speak. And when the people with the power to save her finally listened, he had enough dignity to step aside and let them do exactly that.